be courteous to everyone, friendly to no one. And this is one I'm struggling a little bit with, because just before this podcast, we've been talking about, like, right, you said, well, I always try to be very nice to people, say hi, greet them. This is how you were raised. And I actually noticed that about you before. And I think I do the same, right? So if we're at a restaurant with a team, the waiter comes, there's always going to be two people that always thank the people all the time. And that's going to be you and me, right?
Yeah.
And so I actually like being friendly to people. And I do have some contact with people that are in special operations or that are former operations. And this is one I always notice with them. They're not unfriendly. They're not crass or like mean to people, but they're almost never friendly, which is kind of funny and kind of strange. But they are always courteous, right? They always say thank you. They always say please. But it's not in the same way that you do it, for example. It's always like a little bit more reserved. And maybe it's not felt, it's not heartfelt. And so I've always been noticing this, and it's always been kind of strange to me. And I wonder what the reason could be for something like that. Do you have an idea, like why somebody would not try to be friendly but still be polite and courteous?
I think it depends a little bit of the situation, or also on the relationship between those two people. I think being polite has a lot to do with some manners you raised with or whatever. And it's always good to be polite and have those manners. But on the other hand, I think, not on the other hand, but I think a big part of it is also like a little personal distance. Because like you said, I'm really friendly, and I think I give the most people a good feeling or like a welcome feeling. But sometimes it's really on a personal base. So if I think about myself talking to people in higher positions, I'm always super friendly, whatever, but I do not really make a difference between the friendliness between business relationships, or not on a like, in a different kind of way, but I'm always friendly. But I think some people have in mind that this is, for example, like a work relationship, and there's a difference between friendliness or politeness with other, like with their friends. For example, maybe the people are completely different when they talk to family members or friends, whatever. But I think me, it's more like I see the people as human. Doesn't matter in which positions they are or what they're working, what title they have. I try to be always polite and super friendly, because this is also a way I wanted to be treated.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. And I was also thinking that, maybe it's a matter of which industry you're in, right? Because if you're in special operations, your business is in the end to kill people if necessary, right? And so you might encounter a lot of people that you might need to inflict violence on later on. And so one thing I sometimes notice, it doesn't happen very often, but sometimes my friendliness is taken as weakness. Some people are just like a little bit rougher and they want to look for trouble. And then if I'm too friendly, then they take it as a sign that maybe they can push me around. And so being more courteous instead of friendly, I think is a good way to keep that distance, right? To first of all signal, oh, he's not just a nice guy that you can start pushing around and then find out, but like find out a little bit earlier. And also it probably makes it a little bit easier if you're not too friendly with people then to switch to like a more violent mode, because you don't, maybe it's something about your own mind, right? If you have, like, for example, you treat your child friendly, loving, and then you treat a stranger a little bit more distant, right? It still says courteous, so it's still polite. Maybe that's actually a good idea, because why would you treat everyone basically the same, especially if maybe you're going to be in conflict, and that could be a violent conflict, right? Or also in business. So I notice it there as well that especially very successful entrepreneurs, financiers and so on, they're always very courteous, right? But they also know that some kind of violence can erupt at any time. It's not going to be physical violence. It's going to be a conflict of interest, right? Different shareholders disagree, and they could be very courteous one moment, and the next moment the knives come out, right? And so staying at this courteous level is maybe actually the better option than like always being friendly, because if you're friends, you're not going to be doing the same stuff that you would do if you were just polite.
Absolutely, yeah.